Please welcome veteran DynamicsCon speaker and Microsoft MVP, Savannah Dill. Today, she will showcase her premiering content, efficient integration, build a full-power BI solution for Business Central in 60 minutes. Please stick around after Savannah's session for a live Q&A.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to my session. This is Efficient Integration, Build a Full Power BI Solution for Business Central in 60 minutes. Now, we have a lot of content to cover in that amount of time, so I'm going to move through things very quickly. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, at this point, I'm hoping you can all see my screen. I'm getting the good looking from my screen. So let's talk real quick. What are you going to learn today? So at first, we are going to start with how to connect Business Central to Power BI. And then we'll dive a little bit more deeply into building a data model and creating visualizations to analyze your key metrics. And then lastly, we will cover how to do some integration. So how do you share your reports? And then how do you integrate them into other Office tools such as Teams or PowerPoint to kind of take it to the next level, if you will. All right, so let's get into an overview of Business Central and Power BI. I'd like to do this because a lot of you may be just starting your journey with Business Central and Power BI. So I think it's really important to, cover the basics of the why, the hows, and, how you can get started as a beginner. There'll also be some more advanced things sprinkled in here, but this session really is truly intended for the beginner or intermediate individuals who are just starting their journey. So let's first quickly cover the why. Why might you want to utilize Business Central and Power BI? This kind of has been broken down into 4 main points for me, starting with data-driven insights, Power BI, business intelligence. It's the key of a lot of businesses. Without data, businesses can't propel themselves into making better choices to help them grow. That being said, when you have data-driven insights, it also improves your operational efficiency, and it really allows you to extend Business Central's reporting capabilities. So within Business Central, you have a lot of baked-in reports. You have your RDLC reports, you have Excel reporting, and all of those are awesome. However, where I think they lack is dynamic activity. You don't have the interaction that you are equipped with Business Central. And that can lead to a really personalized experience. And speaking of, creating that personalized experience, this is somewhere where I get stuck with clients very early on. So I like to call this the tradition over transformation loop. What is the tradition over transformation loop? It's basically when you begin talking to a client or maybe your superior, and maybe you're moving from a legacy system to Business Central, and you are stuck with the phrase, "Can you make this report look exactly like our legacy system?" This is great. Power BI does have a lot of functionality baked in where you can almost replicate reports, say from like GP or other legacy systems. However, I really recommend that if you are becoming a Power BI report builder, that you kind of push the envelope a little bit, that you kind of push back and say, yes, we can do this, but did you also know we can do this? A lot of people, when they adopt Power BI into the organization, they might not be aware of all the capabilities. And once they see all the functionality that's baked in, they'll be like, wow, their mind is blown. They want more. So I really urge people to not get kind of stuck in this loop and really encourage people to open their minds to the possibilities. Also, I see this on the right a lot too, saying we need to export this to Excel, and no problem. Power BI does export to Excel if that is a If that is a constraint for you, just know that that is possible. Now, let's talk about architecture. So, when connecting Business Central to Power BI, what are the requirements? What is the security? And how do we do it? And also, where do you begin when thinking about, do I need a development team? Can I do this myself with someone that may not have experience, um, creating web services or creating reports? Let's start with connecting Business Central to Power BI. What are the requirements? The good thing, if you are a beginner, is there really are no limitations or requirements. The only requirement that is essential is that you download Power BI Desktop. You can get this from the web, from powerbi.com, or you can get it from the Microsoft Store by typing in Power BI Desktop in the search bar and installing it. What a lot of people don't know is Power BI Desktop is actually a free application to use, and you don't need any licensure to build reports, connect and import your data. That is all free. Now, I'll talk a little bit about when it becomes a license required situation, but that will be a little bit later. And then security. The good thing with Power BI and Business Central is security is fluid. So if you have a user who's building reports and say they don't have access to all of the tables or pages in Business Central, they're not going to have access to it. Even if they expose a web service, they're not going to have access to it within their Power BI report. It'll just say this table is empty. And then lastly, how do we do this? I'll show a live demo soon on how we can actually do this. But this kind of bleeds into the conversation of web services versus dev. So in Business Central, web services are a type of API call where you can look at pages and basically add them to a list, and then it is then exposed to Power BI. And that's how you get your data into Power BI. Now let's talk a little bit about dev. When do I need a developer? When would a developer be, a good move? So a developer can do a lot in Business Central, and if you have the IT team to support this, I definitely recommend looking into it if you're running into performance issues, or if you just want a little bit more of a streamlined process. So developers can create extensions, page extensions. They can do all of these amazing things within Business Central. And what that does with Power BI is it provides a more personalized, structured page for you to pull from. So whereas with a web service, you're going to pull the whole page. You're going to pull all of the rows, all of the columns, everything. All of that's going to be imported. This can kind of lead to performance issues if you have a lot of data. So with a developer, if you can kind of constrain those columns that are pulled in, it can just perform a little bit better. So if you're struggling there, I would, recommend maybe looking into development. There's also ISVs like E1. They have a query builder that will do the same thing with little to no dev needed. All right, and now let's get into data modeling. So data modeling is one of my favorite things. It is going to be the backbone of your report. On the right here, you kind of see a little bit of a process, a Power BI development process, if you will. And this is going to be the process that you follow when you build reports. Now, it all starts with accessing, cleaning, and mashing up your data. Those are going to be your first three in the rotation. And before we even access our data, I think it's important to define your requirements with your end user. So who are you building this report for? Let's say we're building a report for our C-suite, and they want to look at sales information over time. This is the point in time where you might ask, okay, what KPIs are most important to you? Also, you might ask about visualizations. Are they looking for more tabular data? Are they looking for bar charts? Are they looking for time analysis? These are the types of things you could be asking. Also, this is the point in time where you would think about your connection. Now, moving forward, we're going to be looking at this from a beginner's lens, so we'll be utilizing web services. So at this point, we would need to use the Business Central connector. And then once we have all of our pages pulled into Power BI from Business Central, that will allow us to start the most important part of the structure of a report, and that is building relationships and transforming our data. So when you transform your data, you may remove columns, you may add some custom columns, you may do a lot of things. There's a lot of things you can do when it comes to cleaning and transforming your data. And once you are happy with that, you will build relationships between your tables. Now, relationships are super important for your data model because that's what allows you to have the dynamic activity between your visualizations in your report. The other cool thing with Power BI that you don't get in Business Central, which kind of leads back to that extending the capabilities conversation. In Business Central, if you're looking at a page, you just get that page. It may be a header, a list full of information. With Power BI, you can pull in header and lines, and it can all be in one place. And I think that's really special, and it allows you to view more with less clicks, which ultimately leads to a better user experience. Speaking of relationships, there's two things that I want to talk about with relationships, and that is building the star schema / the waterfall, which if you are not new to data modeling, you might be like, Savannah, what is a waterfall? I've never heard of waterfall. That is because it's something I thought of when I first started my journey, because relationship building was very convoluted and very confusing to me. Also, another key part of relationships is cardinality. That determines, how the relationship is built, and it's also related to the star schema. So I'll show that in a minute, but before I do that, I just wanted to read this quote. So, building strong relationships between tables is essential. It transforms raw data into meaningful narratives. I love this quote. As someone that has user experience background, I think creating the best user experience, no matter what software you're using, especially Power BI though, is incredible. It really can push the boundaries of how users ingest data and how they can make their data-driven decisions based off of it. Okay, so the star schema. So the star schema is a type of data modeling technique. It is the gold star, if you will, of data modeling. And how it works is, if you look on the left side of the screen here, you have this fact table, so reseller sales. And surrounding it, you have all of these dimensions. So what is a fact and what is a dimension? A dimension is going to be your almost static information that supports the star of the show, if you will. So in this case, we have our reseller sales. This is going to be our transactional table. It's going to be our fact table. It's going to be where, all of these transactions are happening, and it's going to be related out to a whole bunch of different things. So in this case, our reseller sales is going to be related to the reseller information, which might hold information about name, contact information, etc. Product information. In Business Central, this would be the item card. So yeah, it's just the dimensions support the facts. Now, I mentioned this was a really confusing concept to me when I first started, and that's kind of where this waterfall was born. So I like to think of the facts flowing down into a pool of dimensions or supporting information, if you will. You could probably also think of this the opposite way, but this was just an easy way for me to conceptualize this when I first started. All right, and cardinality. So cardinality is also kind of one of those things that you just kind of have to learn as you build out reports. So in the previous slide, we talked about, our reseller table being supported by product and reseller and date and all of these things. Those would be a one-to-many relationship. So this is going to be your most common type of relationship. And basically what it means is there's one supporting detail related to many. So in our case, we had many transactions with one supporting detail from each of the surrounding queries. A many-to-one type of relationship is going to be similar to a one-to-many, but it's just going to be viewed from the opposite perspective. So depending on how you build your relationship in Power BI, um, that will be the relationship. A one-to-one and a many-to-many relationship. Now, these two types of relationships are going to be used less. They are even discouraged, especially a many-to-many. So a one-to-one basically means there's one transaction for one supporting detail. Now, in Business Central, this is rare, but it is useful for certain master data detail setups. It does happen. One-to-one can happen. Many-to-many, however, in the case of Business Central, I usually recommend to avoid these if you can. And this is because it can require complex setup and it can cause a lot of confusion between your queries. You may not get the result you're expecting if you use this relationship type. The good thing is Power BI will often assign the cardinality automatically for you. So it's not something you really have to worry about unless you're getting the many-to-many error. All right, and the last few things on our crash course is building reports and visuals. Now, earlier I said that I was a individual with user experience and design background, so I'm all about creating the best user experience for my end users. So that being said, it's important when you first begin to talk to your end users, see what they're expecting, see what their needs are as far as reporting. And from there, it is your job as the designer to select the right visuals for the data. So is it a bar? Is it a line? Is it a decomposition tree? Whatever it may be, it needs to feed the needs of your users. Also, avoiding non-accessible colors, avoiding extreme contrast, cluttered pages. You really want to design for your audience. My old graphic arts teacher once told me the phrase KISS, so keep it simple, stupid. That has stuck with me throughout my career, if you will. I really like a clean report, and it seems that most of my end users do as well. Avoiding non-accessible colors and extreme contrast is just the safest bet, because just because one end user may not require accessibility needs, that doesn't mean that someone else may not. So another thing that you can use is themes in Power BI as you design. So themes really allow you to kind of put in your brand identity. So instead of going into individual visuals and changing all the color to blue, using a theme, you can set these settings and apply the theme, and it will do the heavy lifting for you, which is a time saver. Two resources that you can use is Colors, Coolors, and Adobe.color. These are two great resources as you begin working with color palettes and themes. All right, and the last thing that I would like to quickly cover is using filters and drill through. So with Power BI, you have slicers, which are going to be like filters in most other products. So, you can have a drop down or a button, or, there's so many things you can do with slicers, but, drop down, button, and when you select those things, you can change the data displayed on your report. You also have visual versus page versus report filters. I really like to use these as a development standpoint because say you have a data set and this is the data set that will be reused. And say in your report, you're building a sales report and you only need 2023 data and forward, but the data set contains information from 2022 and forward. Utilizing the visual versus page or report filters, in this case it would be a page over a report filter, you can actually filter out that data while not filtering it on the Power Query side, which would impact other users as they begin to reuse the data set as well. Also, drilling through just allows you to view more information related to that piece of information. So going back to the sales order example, so you have an overview Power BI page, and on that page it's an overview of sales, and on that page you have tabular data with all of your sales order listed and maybe an amount. With drill through, you could right click and click on the customer or the date, whatever it may be, and view more information. So if it was a customer, then you could drill through and see all of the line information related to what that customer has purchased throughout the year. All right, and before we actually build, I want to talk really briefly about Power BI service. So this whole time I've been talking about Power BI Desktop. Power BI Desktop, once again, is a free application to use. It's going to be the place where you build reports, interact with the data, build your data model. Power BI Service is going to be the next piece of that. So Power BI Service is going to be a paid service. It does require licensure, either a Power BI Pro Premium or Premium for Capacity license. The good thing about this is it's going to be the primary place for sharing and digesting reports. I really, really recommend that my end users adapt Power BI Service as well, because once you build your report, you can then publish it to Power BI Service and share, the space with your end user. I recommend not using the Power BI raw file because when sharing with other end users, it increases chances for user error in report corruption. Maybe things were deleted on accident. Just not a good thing. Also with Power BI Service, you get extended security and performance. So the two main things here, I think, would be workspaces. Power BI workspaces are kind of like departments. They allow you to kind of section off reports into different groups of people. So you might have a workspace for C-suite, HR, sales, and the people within those groups may be different. They may have access to multiple workspaces, but only if you have access to the workspace can you view the reports within. Another important piece with Power BI Service is scheduled refresh is then enabled. So scheduled refresh is awesome because you can, depending on your licensure, you can have 8 or 48 per day, and Power BI will automatically trigger your data set to refresh, and thus giving you, a fresh view. A lot of my clients like to do it around 6 to 7 a.m., right before they get into the office. They can open their Power BI report then and have a fresh data set there. Also not listed is you can actually create things like data flows and data marts and all of the data in Power BI Service now. So you're not restricted to just using Power BI Desktop to create your data models, but I still personally like to create mine within Power BI Desktop. And then 365 integrations. So Power BI has a lot of different integrations, including Teams, PowerPoint, and with other components of the Power Platform, including Power Automate and Power Apps. So, these are things to just keep in mind. If we have time today, I'll share how to do so. Okay, so enough of the crash course. Let's get to building. So what are we going to be building today? We're going to be building a Power BI report that's connected to Business Central. It's going to be a sales report, and we will cover relationships, visualizations, and sharing and integrations with other Office applications if we have time to do so. All right, so I'm going to first quickly move over to Power BI. So here we have a Power BI report that I have developed. And this is a Power BI report that is connected to Business Central looking at sales data. So we have the posted sales invoice header and lines in this report. So let's talk quickly about how I got here. The first step is opening Power BI Desktop. So once you have Power BI Desktop downloaded from the Microsoft Store or powerbi.com and open it for the first time, this is going to be the type of view that you are greeted with. This main area right here is called your canvas. You have your ribbon, just like a lot of other Microsoft products. And then over here, we have the fun stuff. So this is where you select your visualizations, and you can also look at the different queries that are available within your report currently. So let's talk about getting data. We can attack this from two different perspectives, from the Power BI perspective or the Business Central perspective. I'm going to start with the Business Central perspective. So let's start in Business Central. So here I am in a Business Central sandbox. I have already talked to my end user, and they have told me they want a sales report based on what's been posted. So that tells me I'm going to, look at posted sales invoices. If you're not sure where to start, this may require a deeper conversation with your end user, maybe having them walk you through, where they expect to see the data in Business Central, or maybe what they're already looking at within Business Central. If you have a BC consultant on your team, this may also be, or a pro, this may be a good project to work through together. But because in this case, I know that I am looking at posted sales invoices, I'm going to go to my search bar here and type in web services. Like I said earlier, web services are going to be the place to begin, I believe, if you're a beginner. And I really recommend people start with web services because you don't need a developer, you don't need any extra ISV. This is just a great place to start if you're just starting. So looking at this list, I have a lot of different web services available. Most of these are available through Microsoft out of the box. However, what I like to do is I like to create my own no matter what. So to create a web service, you're just going to go to New, and then this line will pop up here, and you'll select Page. The next piece of information to fill out would be the object ID. So you might be thinking, okay, I know I need posted sales invoices. I don't know what the object ID is. The object ID is going to be the page number in this case. So what you can do is hit this drop down arrow and hit select from full list. And here you can either scroll through the list and look what you're looking for, or hit this other search bar and just start typing in. So in this case, I typed in posted sales. I get all of these different posted sales shipment, posted sales invoice, posted sales credit memo. These are all different things that you might see. I see posted sales invoice here. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And Business Central will automatically fill that out for me. The next important piece here is going to be your service name. In most cases, I recommend doing a prefix. So I work for the TM Group. They are a partner. And if I'm in a client's environment, I often like to do the prefix TMGBI. That means, TMG created it, and it's for the purposes of BI. And then I'll do underscore, and then I'll do my name. So posted sales invoice header. So earlier I mentioned that you can pull in the header and line information. This is just going to be the header. So I always put header or lines after the service name just so it gives me a flag in my head to know that, that is what this is. And then the last thing you'll do is hit publish. And once I check that box, I will then be able to go back into Power BI and get data and select the query that I just made. However, because I've already done this in this environment, I'm going to not do that. Instead, I'm going to quickly pivot and say, I'm going to show you a little trick if you don't want to go through the object ID selector down here, because there is a use case for it. So I'm going to go ahead and type in posted sales invoices. And here I get all of my posted sales invoices. I'm going to go ahead and open one. So now I'm looking at the header, I'm looking at the lines, I'm looking at all of the details. I'm going to ahead and hit Control Alt F1. And what this does is it opens up your page inspector. And this is really key information as far as exposing web services because it allows you to see the page number. So here I see the page number is 132 for the header. And the second piece is going to be looking at the lines. So if I click on the lines here, I see a binding box and then this information changes. So posted sales invoice subform, you can see that it's 133. This is important, especially for lines, because if you go to expose the lines in web services, all the lines show up as lines. And what does that mean? So you see here, I have exposed the 133 object ID. So we know that's the posted sales invoice lines. However, it just says lines. So it's really important to get your object ID for lines because lines will just show up as lines no matter what lines they are. So you see I have lines here, I have lines here. These are two different things. It's important, just keep in mind, page inspector, good, Control Alt F1. Okay, let's go back to Power BI. So when starting to build a Power BI report, we will always start with get data. Data is going to be our backbone. So let's go to get data. And what this does is it opens up a connector menu, if you will. So there's tons of connectors here, not just Business Central. There's a whole lot. So if you're new to Power BI, maybe you're using other platforms as well. I recommend that you take some time to look through this list and see if a connector is available. And if not, the good thing is there's plenty of custom connectors that community have created. So I selected Business Central and I hit connect. Once I hit connect, I'll be greeted with all of my different companies here. So in this, I have quite a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and open my manufacturing company because that's where I just exposed my web service. And I'll open Cronus and then I'll expand to web services. If you are working with a developer, you may see your extension in the standard APIs. So just keep that in mind. You can also search. So that's a nice tool, especially if you use a prefix. Another reason why I like to use prefixes is they're all grouped together alphabetically. So, if I have TMGBI, they're all going to be bunched together, so it makes it easier to find. So I know that we exposed our posted sales invoice header and lines. So here's posted sales invoice and here's posted sales invoice lines. One thing to keep in mind is just selecting something. So if I'm looking at like the jobs list, for example, if I just click on it and highlight it like this, that doesn't mean it's going to be pulled into your report. Only checking the box here on the left is going to import it to your report. From here, you can load your data or you can transform your data. If you hit transform data, it will take you automatically into the back end called Power Query Editor. If you're familiar with Excel, you may already have experience with the Power Query Editor. Very similar as far as functionality goes, and that's where you're going to do a lot of your transformation of data, your cleanup of data, your mashup of data. If you just hit load, it will just load your pages in and import them into Power BI for you, with the option to automatically, then go back into the Power Query Editor, which I'll show in a minute. Now, I'm not going to load the data in today just because for the sake of time, and this is a live demo, and sometimes the demo gods are not with you. So once you hit load, your data will then be populated over here in the data panel. You can see that in this Power BI report, I have the posted sales invoice header and lines in here. And kind of my workflow process with all of this, if I didn't go in and kind of transform my data right off the rip, is once it's pulled in, I will then go over to the relationship view, which is over here on the left. And I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger. There we go. From here, you will see your two different queries that are available. They might look like this, they might look like this. When being imported, you can move them around. And as you can see, I do have a relationship built. I know it's a relationship that's built because it is a solid line. And you can see that I have the header being the one to many side. So in Power BI, the many is going to be shown with the star and then the one. So we have a one supported by many transactions in the lines. So how did I make this relationship? My favorite way to do this is going to the Manage Relationships button and clicking that. And from here, I can hit New Relationship. And then because we only have two tables, this is nice and sweet because I can select Posted Sales Invoice Header and then the lines down here. And then from here, I have to select how I want to build my relationship. Typically in Business Central, between the header and the lines, it's going to be the document number, and that is because it's a unique value. So sometimes it can give you a bit of whiplash, but you just kind of have to scroll through here and find your document number. So here's number. Sometimes it might give it a different name. So on the header, we have number. On the lines, we see number here, but you can see with the preview that they're not the same. That's because the number here on the lines is going to be the item number. So just kind of look out for that. What you really want on the lines is going to be the document number, which there it is. So you see here, I have the lines with the document number and the posted sales invoice with the number. Power BI is telling me there's already a relationship between these two. That is true. So I'm just going to go ahead and open this, but I just wanted to show you how to do it. So now that I have my relationship selected here, Power BI has automatically assigned my cardinality. So I have a many to one relationship, and this relationship is active. Sometimes when you have a really large data model, you might start running into ambiguous circular patterns. So you have to be really considerate of the relationships that you build. So now I have my relationship created, and you can see the solid line between the two. Now, what does this do? This opens up the process then for me to begin building my Power BI report. So if I go back to the report view, I can do a few different things here. I'm going to quickly open up transform data. Like I said, this will open what's called the Power Query Editor. And this is where you can do a lot of different things. Now, I'm not going to spend time here transforming all of my data, but I just want to point out a few different things you can do here. So you can remove columns. You can choose columns. And you can also go to columns. So another keyboard shortcut that I use all the time is Control-G. And what that does is it kind of brings up this list of all the columns that are available in Power BI. And say I'm looking for the job number. And I don't want to scroll through all of these. I can just hit OK. And Power BI will take me to that column. Another thing that you can do here is you can merge queries, you can append queries, and you can add custom columns. You can also, in the Transform tab, do some pivoting. You can group a query to kind of provide you with more of a personalized view, depending on what type of report you're doing. And then once you're done doing your transformations, you can close and apply. Once you hit close and apply, it will actually make your changes stick. If you just hit close, it's not going to stick. So say you did a bunch of transformations, but you didn't apply them, you'll be greeted exactly where you started. And it will say, you have unsaved changes. Would you like to apply them or discard them? So just important to know there. Another few key things here would be publish. So like I said, once we're done building our report, if we hit publish, as long as you are signed in the upper corner here, this will allow you to publish your reports to Power BI Service and select the proper workspace, depending on your access. All right, and then, so let's talk about building visuals. I'm going to go back to my page here just for the sake of time. So this page was actually created in a few different ways. So starting off, you might have noticed I have these like squares and my logo for my blog. I also have some icons in here. This was actually created with PowerPoint. Now, we don't have time to talk about how to create a PowerPoint background today, but essentially I just went into PowerPoint, put my shapes in after I had an idea of what type of visuals I wanted, and created this really nice layout. And from there, once I had that, I just had to think about, okay, what visuals do I want where? I really like creating backgrounds like this for Power BI because it enhances the performance of the report, because you're not only loading in all of these visualizations, you would also then be loading in all of these different shapes and images, and it can make it slower, make your file size blow up. So if you're going to kind of make reports that look something like this, I recommend creating the background in PowerPoint. So let's talk about how to create visuals. So I'm just going to kind of click into a few of these visuals and kind of tell and explain my process. And then I will show off Teams if we have time for an integration there. So let's talk about our monthly sales. So when thinking about monthly sales, you might be thinking, okay, I want the summed amount, and then I want the date. So whether that's a document date or a due date, it just depends on the needs of your end user. So in this case, when I built this report, I utilized due date. So I went over to my posted sales invoice header and I selected due date. And once I selected it, it moved it to the x-axis for me automatically. But the nice thing with Power BI is it's all drag and drop. So say instead I wanted the document date, I could just drag and drop. And I will then, I could then delete the due date if I wanted to. If I didn't want the document date, you just exit out. And then the last thing I would need is the amount. So I'm going to open up my posted sales invoice lines and look for my line amount, drag it in, and that will give me the sum of my line amount. So that's quickly in a nutshell how you can build visualizations. Obviously, when I selected my visualizations, I used the visualization selector, if you will. And there's a lot of really cool visuals in here. So I recommend taking time to look at, the visualizations that are available. So, you have your clustered bar charts, you have pie charts, you have decomposition trees, you have a funnel. There's so many things, and there's also integrations here with Power Apps and Power Automate if you want to embed a Power App or anything into your Power BI report. I've even seen buttons embedded in Power BI reports that are backed by Power Automate, where if you click the button, it can send the data, it can do all of the really cool things. So that in a nutshell is how you can, add visualizations in. Once you're done, you'd hit publish. And once you hit publish, you will then be greeted with your Power BI workspaces. All right, and then I'm going to quickly move to Power BI Service. So Power BI Service can be accessed at powerbi.com. All right, and I'll just utilize this workspace. So workspaces in Power BI are great because what it allows you to do, like I said, is create security. So in this workspace, it's going to be, it's just me in here. So another thing too is you can create workspaces. And you have your own workspace. So right now I am in my workspace. Your workspace is a great testing environment if you're looking at creating reports just for yourself. So I like to upload Power BI reports here. You could also create UAT workspaces if you wish. And production workspaces, I've had clients do that. I've had them utilize development pipelines that essentially do the same thing. But yeah, workspaces are great. They limit your access, and there's a lot you can do here in Power BI Service. And now let's talk about Teams integration. So as long as the Power BI report is published to Power BI Service, you can do a lot of really cool things with Teams. So here I am in Teams, and I have a few different teams. Let's start with just this Teams team. To embed a Power BI report into Teams, all you'll do is you'll hit this add a tab, and it will then ask you to search for apps. You could either type in Power BI, or luckily for me, it has popped in right here. From here, it will there we go. It'll give me a Power BI tab where I can either paste a Power BI report link, or I can browse workspaces. So I'm going to go ahead and upload the report that I just was looking at in my workspace. All right, so here's the report that was in Power BI Service. And this is great because now instead of having to go to Power BI Service, I can then just go to my Teams team, look at my tab, and then my report will be here. You might see this flag here. People with existing access can view this report. So what that's saying is as long as they have access already, they can also view it in Power BI. They can view their Power BI report in Teams. So it's just another nice thing that Teams can do to enhance productivity and reduce clicks. All right, and I'm gonna pull my PowerPoint back up. Okay, so what have we done? So in this session thus far, we have talked about data connectivity. We've talked about using web services versus a development team. And we've also done a little bit of a crash course on Power BI. So we've talked about cardinality, we've talked about relationships, we've talked about star schema. These are all part of the recipe that allows you to create Power BI reports if you are a beginner or perhaps intermediate and you're just kind of dabbling in utilizing Business Central and Power BI together. We also talked briefly about how you can build a Power BI report in Business Central, and then we talked a little bit about Teams integration. The cool thing is here, if I wanted to, I could have embedded the same Power BI report into this PowerPoint, and all of the dynamic activity would have been there as well. So let's talk about resources. So Thinking about resources, these are a list of things that I have kind of used in the past. So the first point being my Not a Pickle blog. So Not a Pickle blog is my blog that I dedicate to writing about Business Central and Power BI together. In January, I will be launching a Introduction to Power BI course, as well as a Power BI plus BC course. If you'd like to kind of take it a step further, get some hands-on information and practical experience. The next four are Guy and Cube. Two guys from Microsoft talking about Power BI, Fabric, all of the goods. Really recommend Patrick and Adam. They're awesome. The next few are Pragmatic Works. They do a lot of great training that is free. All of their trainings are posted to YouTube. So if you miss any live training sessions, they are available there. And that's followed by Enterprise DNA and Microsoft Learn. Enterprise DNA kind of matches the energy of Pragmatic Works, and then Microsoft Learn is just a great free spot for you to begin your Power BI journey and really dive deep and then start getting, even certified. So really recommend all of these. All right. That being said, thank you guys all so much for attending my session. I will see you all in the live Q&A. If you would like to connect, you can go ahead and scan this QR code and we can connect on LinkedIn. I am super happy to answer questions related to Power BI or Business Central and see where we can go. Also, not mentioned is my involvement with Doug. I just want to quickly touch on this if we have time, which I think we do have a few minutes. I just hope you can all thank Doug so much for their involvement with community. DynamicsCon Virtual, DynamicsCon Live, these are all things that are so special to me. As I started this journey about 4 years ago, Doug has really been supportive of me every single step of the way. And if you aren't speaking this year, I really encourage you to start with Doug. All right, thank you guys.